My brother lost his job, so I let him stay rent-free for a year. Then he threw a party and told everyone I was obsessed with playing Landlord. I walked in with a clipboard and said, "You've got 48 hours, but before he could respond, I'm Larissa. I'm 42, single, child-free, and live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, tucked away in the Berkshires, with all the quaint small-town charm you'd expect. It's quiet here, a little sleepy. But that's always suited me just fine. I inherited a 3-bedroom house from my Aunt Josephine about 7 years ago. It's old but beautiful, wraparound porch, creaky floors, ivy along the east side, the kind of place where you can hear yourself think. I work as a freelance graphic designer, mostly for small marketing agencies and nonprofit clients. My work is steady, I work from home, and I like my routines. I live with 2 spoiled cats, Miso and Clive, who rule the house and barely tolerate each other. Until last year, my life was uneventful in the best way. And then Trent happened. My younger brother Trent is 4 years younger than me. He's 38 now. He's always been a little scattered, a little chaotic. You know those people who seem like they're always almost about to figure it out? That's him. He was the funny one, the charming one. High energy. Always making friends quickly, always chasing the next big thing. Never stayed anywhere long. Dropped out of college, bounced around jobs. He had a string of entrepreneurial ventures, a travel app that never launched, a social media management gig that he got bored of, a startup that I still don't understand, even after he explained it 10 times. I don't say this to be mean, it's just who he is. The dreamer. The ideal guy. The one who can light up a room but can't return a phone call. We weren't super close as adults, but we checked in a few times a month. After our parents passed, Mom died of breast cancer when we were in our 20s, Dad had a heart attack a few years later, it was just the 2 of us. I tried to be the stable one. The responsible one. I think part of me felt like I had to hold the family together somehow. So when Trent called me in June of last year, saying he'd lost his job and was about to be evicted from his apartment in Providence, I didn't hesitate. I told him he could come stay with me. He sounded like he was on the verge of tears, said he just needed a month or 2 to get back on his feet. I told him to pack what he needed and get on the road. I meant it. He showed up 3 days later with 2 duffel bags, a desktop PC, a DJ mixer I'd never seen before, and a guitar he hadn't played in a decade. And just like that, my quiet house wasn't quiet anymore. At first, I didn't mind. He was family, and he was in a tough spot. He helped mow the lawn, cooked a few meals that first week, and said he was applying for jobs. I believed him. I even found it kind of nice having someone else around, even if he talked through my conference calls and left dishes soaking for 3 days straight. But time started dragging. A month passed. Then 2. Then 3. He wasn't working, wasn't really helping around the house much either. His bedroom was a disaster, and he slowly started spreading into other parts of the house. The guest room became his studio. The sunroom turned into a soundproofed DJ booth made of egg cartons and duct tape. My den? Suddenly his editing suite. He was filming YouTube videos now, though I never saw him finish one. When I asked him about jobs, he'd wave it off. I'm networking, he'd say. Or I've got a few things in motion. He slept in most days and stayed up all night. I started finding empty Red Bulls and takeout boxes stuffed behind couch cushions. Once, I found a half-eaten sandwich in the planter behind my ficus. Still, I didn't ask him for rent. Or utilities. Or even groceries. I kept telling myself, he's going through something. He'll figure it out. Give him time. Around month 5, I gently suggested he could contribute in small ways, pay for internet, help with groceries, maybe chip in on gas for the car he borrowed constantly. He rolled his eyes and muttered something like, "Jesus, Larissa, you act like you're my landlord or something." It stung. But I brushed it off. He was stressed. I was probably being too sensitive. Or so I told myself. Then came the party. One weekend in June, I had to go to New York for a client workshop. It was just a 2-day thing, Saturday and Sunday, and I left him a list of reminders. Trash day, water the plants, don't let Clive eat Miso's food. Basic stuff. I didn't expect anything special. Just don't burn the house down. What I didn't expect was to come home early, around 9:30 p.m. on Sunday, and find my house absolutely overrun. There were people everywhere. Cars up and down my street. Someone had parked on my lawn. I could hear the bass from down the block. It sounded like a club. When I opened the door, I was hit with the stink of weed, beer, and sweat. There were at least 30 people crammed into my living room. A stranger was throwing up in my kitchen sink. Someone had spilled red wine all over my beige rug. My cats were nowhere to be found. I walked into the chaos like I'd stepped into another dimension. And then I heard him. "Everybody! Everybody! The landlord's home!" Trent shouted into the mic, laughing. Everyone turned. I was standing there in my travel clothes, suitcase still in hand, mascara smudged, just staring at them. He grinned. "This is Larissa, my sister, she's obsessed with playing Landlord. Don't touch the coasters, she catalogs them." The room erupted in laughter. I felt like I'd been slapped. I didn't say a word. I turned, walked out, and got in my car. I drove to the grocery store parking lot and sat there for almost an hour. I wasn't crying. I was boiling. The way he mocked me. In my own home. After I gave him a roof over his head for a year, for free. The entitlement. The utter disregard. I drove home quietly once the cars cleared out. He was passed out on the couch. I went straight to bed, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling all night, my heart pounding. By morning, I had a plan. I spent that Monday calculating everything he'd cost me: groceries, utilities, cleaning supplies, a professional carpet cleaner, damage to the walls, everything. I itemized it in a spreadsheet. I printed it. I walked into the living room Tuesday morning with a clipboard in hand. He was on the couch, scrolling TikTok. "You've got 48 hours, I said calmly. He looked up, confused. "To what?" "To move out." And before he could respond, he stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. The remote slipped from his hand onto the couch cushion. "What are you talking about?" he asked, laughing nervously, like this was some weird joke I was pulling. I held out the clipboard. I had printed 2 copies, one for him, one for my records. Every line item had a date, a description, and a cost. "This is what you owe me. Or you've got 48 hours to pack your things and leave," I said, still calm. My voice wasn't even raised. That was the part that really seemed to throw him. "You're serious?" he said, still not taking the paper. "You bet I am. $11,480. That's for rent, groceries, utilities, cleaning, furniture repairs, carpet replacement, and the wine-stained rug you and your guests destroyed." He scoffed. "Are you kidding me? I was your guest, Larissa. You invited me to stay here when I was going through something." "A guest," I repeated, nodding. "Yes. For a month or 2. You stayed for 12. You never asked me for money," he shot back. "Because I assumed you'd offer. Or contribute in some meaningful way. Not throw parties, disrespect my home, and mock me in front of strangers." He stood up now, waving the paper like it was an insult. "You're unbelievable. This is who you are now? Keeping receipts on your own brother like some psycho landlord?" That word again. Landlord. As if it was the worst thing to be. As if the simple act of keeping order in my own home made me controlling or cruel. "I'm not keeping receipts. I'm setting boundaries," I said. "And since talking to you hasn't worked, I'm giving you 2 options. Pay or pack." He glared at me, jaw tight, nostrils flaring like a cartoon villain. "You can't actually evict me," he said. "You never charged me rent. There's no lease. I don't need to evict you. You were here on a verbal agreement that expired when you stopped being a respectful guest. If you don't leave, I'll call the police and have you removed as a trespasser." That got his attention. He laughed again, but it was sharp, defensive. "Wow. You're really doing this? Your own brother?" I shrugged. "Apparently so." The next 48 hours were tense. He slammed doors. He blasted music from the sunroom. He muttered insults under his breath as he packed his stuff, loud enough for me to hear. At one point, he left the house and didn't come back until 2 a.m., pounding on the door like he expected me to let him in. I didn't. I left it locked and went to bed with earplugs. The following afternoon, I noticed he'd only packed 2 bags. Everything else, his mixer, his guitars, his monitor, the filming lights, was still sitting in the guest room. I knocked on the door. He didn't answer. "You've got 6 hours left," I called through the woods. "Anything left in this house after that gets put on the curb." "Do what you want," he muttered. So I did. I boxed up his equipment, all of it. Labeled it, photographed it, and left it on the porch under a tarp. Then I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. He came back around 10 p.m. that night. Knocked. Then pounded. Then I screamed. He shouted through the door that I was heartless, that I'd betrayed him, that Mom and Dad would be ashamed of me. I didn't answer. I watched him from the upstairs window as he finally slunk away, loading his things into a beat-up Honda Civic driven by some guy I didn't recognize. He didn't even say goodbye. After that, the house was dead silent. You'd think I'd feel relief. And in a way, I did. But more than that, I felt hollow. That empty guest room felt like a mausoleum for something I couldn't name, trust, maybe. Or the hope that family meant something deeper than obligation. I didn't cry that night. But I didn't sleep either. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the fridge and the soft creak of floorboards settling into the silence. The next morning, I walked through the house like I was seeing it for the first time in months. The silence was thick but not suffocating. More like stillness. Like the house was finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. The scent of beer and weed still lingered faintly in the carpets, and there were sticky rings on the dining room table where people had set down their drinks. I grabbed my gloves, a sponge, and started scrubbing. Not just because it needed it, but because I needed it. Cleaning gave me control back, inch by inch. In the guest room, I found one of his old notebooks, spiral-bound, covered in faded stickers. Inside were half-scribbled ideas for apps, DJ set lists, and pages of scattered thoughts. I sat on the edge of the bed and thumbed through it, feeling complicated. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part wanted to shred it and toss it out the window. But mostly, I just felt tired. I bagged it and set it aside with the rest of the things he left behind. I gave him a week to come collect the rest, texting him just once, "You left some personal items. They're boxed. You have until next Friday or they're donated." He didn't respond. The following few weeks were quiet. Almost too quiet. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to text something vile or for one of his friends to show up and confront me. But it never happened. Instead, something weirder did. About 3 weeks after he left, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't recognize. A woman named Jaya. Her profile picture was of her and a toddler. I clicked through, confused. No mutual friends. Her message was short. "Hey Larissa, I hope this isn't weird. I think you're Trent's sister? I'm sorry if this is out of line. Can I ask you something?" I stared at the screen for a full minute. I hadn't mentioned anything on social media. I barely even posted any more outside of cat photos. I replied, "Yes. I'm his sister." "Who are you?" She responded immediately. "My son's father." My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it. We messaged for a bit, then switched to a phone call. I took it from the front porch, pacing back and forth in the shade like I was on some surreal therapy hotline. Jaya told me she and Trent had met a year and a half ago, dated casually, then she got pregnant. He said he wanted to be involved, but the closer her due date got, the less he answered calls. Eventually, he ghosted completely. The baby was born in March. A boy. She hadn't been able to reach him for months. Then she saw a tagged photo from that party on someone's Instagram. He'd been standing in my living room, red Solo cup in hand, looking proud of himself. Someone had captioned it "DJ Rent-Free killing it again." That was how she found me. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I didn't even know he had a kid. He'd never mentioned her, never said a word. He'd been living in my house all that time, and never once said anything about a baby. "I'm not trying to make this your problem," she said gently. "But if you know where he is, I'd like to serve him. Child support. Maybe even get a paternity test if I have to." I gave her what little I knew. He had left with a guy named Zach from Northampton, last I heard. That was it. No phone number. No address. He'd even blocked me after I told him I was keeping the last of his stuff. When I hung up, I just sat there on the porch, staring at the horizon. The sun was starting to set, casting long gold lines across the lawn. It felt like the light was trying to tell me something, but I didn't want to hear it. For a long time, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I had been too harsh. Maybe there was a better way to handle it. A family counselor, an ultimatum with more compassion, something. But then I remembered the laughter. The way he humiliated me in front of strangers. The months of lies and freeloading and smug entitlement. And now, a baby? He hadn't just disrespected me, he was out here abandoning his own kid. It was like peeling back layers of a person you thought you knew, only to find rot beneath the surface. I decided not to respond to his texts anymore. Not that there were many. He sent one, 2 months after he left, "Hope you're proud. You chose a house over your own brother." I didn't reply. Instead, I printed it and taped it inside my clipboard. The same one I walked into the living room with that day. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. Because sometimes, the most painful part of growing up isn't that the people around you change. It's realizing they never did. You just finally saw them clearly. And when you finally do, you have to choose what you'll let into your life. Especially when it's blood. I kept the house quiet after that. There were no more parties. No all-night EDM sessions in the sunroom. No empty Red Bulls behind couch cushions, no mystery girls sneaking out of the guest room in the morning. Just the soft purring of Miso and Clive, the rustle of trees outside, and the occasional creak of old floorboards reminding me I was finally, blissfully, alone. But I wasn't done yet. Because while I didn't believe in cruelty, and I definitely didn't want anything to do with revenge that involved courtrooms or cops unless absolutely necessary, I did believe in consequences. Real, satisfying consequences. About 2 months after Trent left, I started to hear whispers from old mutual friends. He was still couch hopping in Northampton, telling people wildly different stories about why he left Pittsfield. To one friend, I'd lost my mind and turned into a power-tripping tyrant. To another, he voluntarily moved out because my energy was toxic. Someone even messaged me privately saying he claimed I kicked him out after he offered to start paying rent. Classic Trent. But what finally pushed me into action was an email. It came from a woman named Beatrice, who ran a small music production studio in Albany. She found me through my LinkedIn. I have a personal website listed there for my design work. Her email was polite, but direct. "Hi Larissa, I was wondering if you could verify a few details about Mr. Trent Donnelly. He listed your address as his place of residence and used you as a reference on a recent grant application for a creative residency we're reviewing. Just wanted to confirm the information was accurate. Best, Beatrice M." I sat back, blinking at the screen. He had used my address. Without asking. After everything. And the kicker? He claimed he'd been running a collaborative digital arts mentorship program from a home studio in Pittsfield for the last year, with my support, no less. I felt a slow, cold burn behind my ribs. It wasn't just a lie. It was the sheer audacity. He was trying to leverage my hospitality to win a $15,000 residency, pretending the year he freeloaded off me was some productive artist-in-residence phase. I took a sip of tea, opened a blank Word document, and started typing. My response was professional. I didn't use harsh language or insult him. I simply outlined, with dates and details, the reality of his time at my house. That he'd been living there rent-free while unemployed. That he had not run any programs. That he left under strange circumstances after violating my boundaries repeatedly. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The truth was damning enough. Beatrice responded a few days later. "Larissa, thank you so much for your transparency. That clears things up. We appreciate your time." A week later, Trent sent me a furious voice message. Not a call. A 53-second monologue, sent through WhatsApp. "You had to destroy my shot at getting back on my feet? Seriously? What kind of sister are you? Do you even want me to succeed, or are you so bitter you just want me miserable forever? Thanks for nothing, Larissa." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Beatrice, with a short note, "Just thought you should have this too. Take care." I heard through the grapevine later that not only did he lose the grant, but Beatrice flagged his application to other residency programs in the region. Turns out, she sat on 2 other selection committees. He burnt his own name, and I didn't have to lift a match. But it didn't stop there. Remember Jaya? The woman he ghosted? We kept in touch. Not often, just enough. She sent me a photo of her son on his first birthday. Cute kid. Big eyes. Looked like Trent, but with a softer face. Sweeter somehow. She told me she finally tracked him down through a mutual friend of his, and served him with a court summons for child support. He had tried to dodge it, of course. Claimed he wasn't the father, that it was a setup. But DNA doesn't lie. Last I heard, he's on a payment plan he can't afford and living with a friend's mom in Scroon Lake. No car. No job. No studio. And honestly? That's fine. Because here's what revenge really is. It's not a screaming match. It's not destroying someone's property or stooping to their level. That's a drama. That's temporary. Revenge is letting someone fall into the pit they dug, while you keep climbing. Revenge is rebuilding what they tried to take from you, your peace, your dignity, your sense of self, and planting a flag there. These days, I've reclaimed my house completely. The guest room is now an office/library. I painted the walls sage green, bought a new rug, with a pattern that hides wine stains just in case, and added a vintage reading lamp from a thrift shop in Great Barrington. The sunroom? Cat haven. Full of sunlight, a new scratching post, and the softest chaise lounge money can buy. And the clipboard? Still hanging in the hallway. Right above a wooden plaque I had custom made from a little Etsy shop in Vermont. It reads, "This is not a hotel. This is not a venue. This is not a free ride. This is my home." Every now and then, someone will ask me if I ever want to patch things up with Trent. And maybe, one day, that answer will be yes. But only if the apology is real. Only if it's not followed by excuses. Only if it comes from a man who's learned how to own his mess. Until then? He can keep cleaning it up from a distance.